Hey, guys, and otherwise, I'm Jonathan O. Roselion.
And I'm Noah, also known as Polyphonic, and you're listening to Horns and Wings, the podcast where I nail the intro every time.
Always, every time. This week we're talking about issue number 12, aka the issue that was removed from the iOS store for oral sex. And in honor of that, we're going to get removed from the iOS store for all the dick sucking we're going to do to this issue. Let's get into it.
That was how long have you been sitting on that one? You've been waiting to drop that for weeks, eh?
for 20 minutes ago.
Yeah. So before we get into the dick sucking, we should talk about the cover.
Yeah, that's what people want to hear.
Can we talk about this beautiful cover?
Yeah.
Who's on this cover? We haven't seen this friend in a while.
Yeah, we got a prince of the robot kind. What's the species called? Is it just the robot?
I think they're just the robots, yeah.
Okay, I like it. That's a very Saga name.
Yeah.
Which I guess, yeah, they're called Horns and Wings, so robots adds up. But yeah, we have Prince Robot who is lying, and it's actually kind of hard to spot, but he's missing a leg.
Yep.
And he's lying on the... It's kind of abstract because he's lying on a gray solid color, but he's surrounded by some dead horned soldiers, and he has sort of the, like, I guess the test or broken screen, like the color coded bars for his screen. And he's not looking so great.
It's a really striking cover because, like, the covers are usually so bright. They've got these bright backgrounds, and then you have this gray background, and his screen is really popping and intense. It feels heavy and dark.
Yeah, like everything, even though there's like blood and stuff, all of it's very dark and black.
Yeah.
And it's all in service of making this color bar screen just pop as much as possible. And it's in like a very interesting, like it's in the lower right corner of the cover, which is an interesting little place to draw the eye, which I guess that makes you look over the whole cover because you generally start at the top left.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I like it.
And then we open the page and get to just vile smut that had to be banned, right?
Yeah. So we're getting, because we've established that Prince Robot, his screen kind of reflects his subconscious a bit. And so this opening splash, we get a winged soldier holding him, yelling medic, and trying to hold the blood in his neck. and the Prince Robot's screen has a guy blowing another guy. A beautiful act.
It's not even abundantly clear that it's a bot. It's a guy.
It's not. I was looking at it. It's like somewhat short hair, but I think it's just that hint of sideburn that I think is the only thing that might betray the supposed sex of this person. And it got took off Comixology for this nonsense. You want to get into the history behind this occurrence?
Yeah, I'd like to get into this because it's super bizarre, especially when we look at like what the opening splash was from our last issue.
Yep.
Which, in case you forgot, let me remind you, we opened with a graphic sex scene with some full frontal nudity and a big ol' hung. I guess it wasn't as graphic as someone having a wiener in their mouth, but it seems like such a bizarre... What
was the dialogue on that other opening splash?
It was a hung.
I liked how you sold it last episode. But yeah, no, it is just like full on. This is literally just the screen. Like this takes up maybe 2% of this cover.
Yeah.
It's not even. It's just a blowy. Also, I like the fact that it's like in the context of one of the most traumatizing war sequences I've ever read in anything.
Yeah.
And it's just like, blowjob out of context, take it offline.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was so apparently apparently originally it was cited as the iOS store had like Apple had taken it off the store for being too graphic, and then everyone's like, "Hey, what the fuck? We've literally had blowjobs in this series before in Sextillion," which I pointed out in that episode, and everyone's like, "Wait a second." I'm starting to think that this is something else because that was a woman blowing a man, and there's been so much other sex, very graphic sex in this series, and graphic violence and graphic language. But this is the first thing that apparently is deemed worthy of taking off. It's just a blowjob of a man enjoying another man's company, and and then we found out that it was Comixology, the app owned by Amazon. I'm assuming they're owned by Amazon at the time. I don't remember. But Comixology was the one that took it off of their own store, fearing that they were breaking the terms of agreement or whatever with Apple if they had posted it. And so they had preemptively taken it off themselves, and then Apple was like, "We don't care. You can put it on there." And so Apple apparently like was not the issue, and it was specifically Comixology. But yeah, that shows you. I think that is a bit telling that there's two images here. We get two angles of the blowing action, and they like. I do think that's a little telling that someone saw that and was like, well, this is a step too far. When we had done all the steps all too far previously, and this is one of the tamer things to have happened.
Yeah. What a fucking world.
Again, it's not something you see in comics, but yeah, it was a whole ordeal. And which actually on that front, I also when looking up refreshing myself on all the stuff that went down during that, I also discovered this interesting bit, which this is from the Saga Wikipedia. In 2014, the series was included on the American Library Association's list of the 10 most frequently challenged books that year. It had been challenged for containing nudity and offensive language and for being, quote, anti-family, sexually explicit, and unsuited for age group. So
for age group?
This is the most like library ban bullshit I've ever heard of, like anti-family. So the exact opposite of what the comic actually is. It is one of the most pro-family things ever. And then unsuited for age group. So I guess that applies to everything that isn't for children.
Yeah, I guess so.
What a fucking... But censorship's pretty dumb.
But other than the whole censorship and people not being okay with, gay blowjobs, this is actually a really, really gorgeous and really, like, hard-hitting splash. Like, you've got kind of... you've got in the background, you've got these visceral explosions, and you've got like so much motion in the panel with like the blood dripping. You have this visual pun of the robots who are nobles who literally have blue blood.
Yeah.
And then I think it's a really powerful, shocking image that it really kind of throws forward to some of the themes we're going to talk about later on in the story, when amidst this scene of gore, you have the kind of dying prince robot thinking of sex, right?
Yeah. That's an important thing to keep in mind going forward.
Also, the soldiers' wings are peacock feathers, and that's fucking cool.
Peacock tail feathers.
Yes.
So figure that shit out. And their little head feathers too. It's just all the feathers of a peacock. I dig it. All right, do you want to run us down on this scene?
Yeah. All right. So Peacock Soldier is holding a dying Prince Robot 4. Then we turn the page and we see this little mouse-looking person, who we can assume is the medic coming over, and also we get some more graphic oral sex. This time it looks like a whole group of penises. I believe this is what they call bukkake on
Yep.
Prince Robot the Fourth's face.
That is the medical term, yes.
And so the medic comes in, takes out a weird multi-pronged syringe thing, says this is gonna hurt like fuck for a second, and jabs it into the prince. And then we pull out and we see this kind of battle going on around. And then the medic's kind of making small talk with the prince as he's kind of sitting up, and the medic's patching up the prince. And then we get this cry of masks, get your masks on now. And we see a bunch of winged soldiers with gas masks and green gas. The mouse says gas, but the treaty. And the mouse says that they didn't give them a gas mask, and this green gas comes in. The prince says maybe you're immune to this spell's effect. And then we get the Jesus Christ.
Oh,
the mouse says, "Am I dying?" And then the mouse's face is like swelling up, all grotesque. And the mouse says, "Am I gonna?" And then the mouse explodes. Like we see no mouse. We literally just see a suit with blood gushing and exploding out of everywhere, out of every hole in the suit.
It's not even bone or like tissue or anything. It is just blood.
Oh, it is just raw violence.
Yeah. And yeah, it is. This is the one. Anytime I've mentioned, because I've mentioned like how traumatizing the violence like can be in this book, and how much it does not make war cool or like that sort of it's not really that badass violence that we get with some of the will scenes in terms of the war scenes. It's always like actual upsetting like catch-22 war sequences. This is the one that comes to mind anytime I mention that, because this has always stuck with me.
And there's I think a big reason behind that is because Brian K. Vaughan does such a good job of humanizing, and you get so much of this mouse's character before they explode. Yeah. Like you get there's a bit of a sense of humor. There's this kind of positive chipper thing. Like when they come down, they're like, "What's your name, handsome?" to Prince Robot, and no joke, this is gonna hurt like fuck for a second. Like there's kind of this light breezy atmosphere, and then we get a bit of backstory. The mouse, the wings saved their planet, and they want to help support and get a degree on landfall. Like it's a tried and true trick of just like introducing a character and giving them such a chipper demeanor and such a happy backstory, and then just murdering them in the most brutal fucking way imaginable.
This is by far their fastest, it might be for the whole series, their fastest turnaround on making you fall in love with a character and then immediately killing them off in the worst way. But even down to the choice of character design, where they make her an adorable mouse.
Yeah, with giant sparkling eyes.
Yeah, like, so you're immediately like every aspect of this character is to endear you to this character as quickly as possible. And then just kill them off in one of the most fucked up and graphic ways imaginable.
And I think what really sells the fucked up and graphic is not like the exploding panel is the shot, but it's the shot before where you can see the mouse's face swelling up and the teeth distorting and stuff that lead up to the explosion. That's really like that's what really I don't know, that's what really hits me, and you can imagine this visceral kind of bulging and then exploding.
Yeah, and even to the thing that really, it's the combination of that and her last line saying, "Wait, am I dying? Am I gonna?" And then she dies, and that is such a like upsettingly human, tragic thing, and it is just like, in terms of like I've never. I feel like if anything, not only does it portray the graphicness of this war, and also like, I think that a lot of us are inclined to probably root for
I
the
was gonna mention
horns.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, they're the natural, like you get all those sort of like the
Avatar.
plays on Pocahontas and Avatar and all that stuff where it's just like, oh, there's the natives who are using their magic and stuff like that. And this one is just like, oh, they used like mustard gas but worse. And it's like an actual war crime.
Yeah, and it's gas that had been outlawed by a treaty that they allegedly signed.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that it really does a good job of like showing you how thoroughly fucked up this war is, and then also this is doing so much. Like it might seem like just unnecessarily graphic or upsetting, but like this does so much to put you into since literally the first page or so that we've seen Prince Robot, we've seen that he's traumatized, that he has PTSD.
Yeah.
And it is very easy to understand that now. Like, it is, talk about fucking show don't tell. Like, it is very effective.
I think it's really powerful too, because I'm flipping back and like, when is the last time that we saw Prince Robot? Like,
oh, it's been a while.
It was the last time we saw him, I think, was chapter 7.
We haven't really gotten this might be the first time we've gotten dialogue from him in this whole arc, because we just saw him. He's just been in that spaceship heading to Quietus since the end of the last book, and so I will gush about the structure of this arc towards the end of the episode. But this is a welcome return to Prince Robot.
Yeah, it's such a jarring jarring way to get you back into him, and it also humanizes him in a really raw way.
Yep.
Which is super interesting given how the rest of the issue goes, and given that like he is hunting our main characters, right?
So this arc has gone to great lengths to endear you to the pursuers of the main characters.
I think we can move on to this next little quick scene though.
Yeah. So we see Prince Robot covered in blood from the mouse exploding, and we kind of zoom back to see that it is the image on his screen as he's laying down, and it's interrupted by a priority transmission from Landfall Secret Intelligence. And so he wakes up. He's still in the Stalk's ship. He's getting a call from our favorite shitheel, Special Agent Gale.
Card-carrying member of the bad place.
And he is he's in a tuxedo, and he's very uncomfortable at a very fancy robot/wings party going on. He's calling Prince Robot to see what's taking so damn long with his mission, which I'm wondering the same thing, because he's been riding in that ship for a very long time. And he said that he's looking for the Oswald heist. It's mostly a refresher on what his whole goal is, because we haven't seen him for an arc.
Yeah.
But he says he's going to Quietus because he thinks that the Oswald heist inspired Alana and Marco. Gale reminds him that he sees his wife, who's now showing, who's pregnant, and that Prince Robot might want to get this job done if he wants to see his kid, because otherwise he's just going to be stuck out there looking for these three people forever until they're dead. So this is reestablishing the stakes, and we see the important thing in this last panel. We see the ship arriving towards, it looks like, I'm just piecing this together, by the way. It's a big just cloud of gas. Gray gas. Yeah. And there's a big light emanating from the center of it.
Yeah, I never got that.
I'm just now piecing together what that is. So we're heading towards a big ball of gas.
Yeah. I don't think there's too much to analyze here.
No.
I think we it's a like you said, it's a good refresher, and it's
Yeah.
spouting exposition, but in a natural way. It feels earned, and you're also learning kind of a bit more about Special Agent Gale, who is this interesting figure that I still don't fully know what to make of.
Yeah.
But it's just it adds another kind of he adds this whole level of power dynamic and politicking into kind of Prince Robot's story, where like
Right.
Prince Robot is a prince, but then he's also beholden to this, and like there's kind of hovering threats around his family, and like it's a very kind of tense political situation around all of this, right?
Yeah, Gale kind of reminds me of like how in the Mission Impossible movies there's always a different what is it, CIA director that's like butting heads.
IMF, Impossible Mission Force.
Right. But I will say I think it was I'm thinking of Rogue Nation, where it was Alec Baldwin as
Baldwin, yeah,
the director, because the one died or what, I don't remember. Anyway, but like they're always just like take him out, replace him with another actor every movie, because they're so inconsequential and no one actually cares about them because they're actually just there for exposition. But like they're actually but Gale, I like that they've been consistent with Gale, because it really could have been just any higher up, like different higher ups, throughout the series. But they've just had this, like, just to remind you of how fucking annoying it is that he's getting these calls. That they just made a really shitty character do those calls.
Well, and this is the thing. It's not like Gale is this like authoritative. Gale just seems like a fucking douchebag. Like that's how I would describe him.
What's that? I won't get political here, but what's that Ben, the fucking Aquaman guy?
The Ben Shapiro.
Ben Shapiro. That's my list of actors to play Gale are Adam Scott and then Ben Shapiro. Yeah, we get fucking political on here, man. You can't fucking stop us. Ban us, iOS.
Also important to note in this scene, we get another shot of an alligator butler, and I just love the alligator butlers.
They're the best.
Yeah. So then we good to turn the page onto the most delightful scene you've ever seen?
Please turn that page. Oh, I'm so pumped. All
right, so we turn the page and we get I'm gonna spoil here. These guys we'll learn their names later. It's Goose and Friendo.
It's Goose and Friendo.
Goose is a seal person who looks to be about 2 feet tall. He's got adorable little eyes and this chipper smile. And he's walking his big friend, who is a walrus with like hippo legs and feet.
Yeah.
And this walrus has like plants and stuff satched on his back, and we're on this kind of like gray like background that looks kind of like Nova Scotia. And Goose and Friendo, it's just the character design of this story. Okay, I need to get into this summary, but goddamn, can we just like can we have a minute to appreciate Goose and Friendo?
It's literally like a seal fisherman, and it's so adorable. It's so great.
And he's got, I forgot to mention, he's wearing like little yellow rubber overalls.
Oh my god.
Oh, it's such a nice little salve, a little bit of eye bleach after watching an adorable mouse explode.
Yeah, can't wait for him to die horrifically. Can't wait till they crucify him. But until then,
so he's walking down this landscape. We see the dragon ship arrive, and Prince Robot 4 steps out looking like an absolute badass and says, "Which way to the author?" And Goose says Mr. Heist don't like visitors unless they're lady folk, and then kind of squints and says, "Are you lady folk?" And then says that Heist is in the old lighthouse, and we see a lighthouse, which now the lighthouse was what was projecting the light through the cloud.
yeah.
and Prince Robot 4 heads over that way, and I think that's about that scene, because then we get into the meat of this story.
Yeah, I'm now realizing, I'm just now putting all of this together, but the lighthouse is just shooting a beam of light straight up into the air, which is so fucking cool. So that's how they do a mist planet.
Other than the incredible character design of Goose and Friendo, I love how with just body language, Fiona Staples gets Prince Robot's reply to the "Are you lady folk?"
Yeah.
Like, this guy has no facial expression, but you know the exact look that he's giving Goose.
Yeah, because he has his, it's like this, it's an eye level shot, but he has his head tilted down as if he's like looking up at him angrily, which also doesn't especially make sense because like Goose is shorter than him by a good 4 feet. But it works so well. And yeah, it's amazing how expressive Prince Robot can be with no expressions.
Throughout this whole scene, as he's stepping off the ship, there's this kind of confidence and swagger, and then when he's walking towards the lighthouse, you get this sense of him like stomping off angrily.
Yeah, he's like trudging away.
Yeah. It's incredible what you can do with body language.
There's so many cool little things in this scene. How do you hear Goose's voice? Is my question to you.
I don't know. I've kind of like a normal human's voice, but a little higher, and he's definitely got like a very rural accent.
Yeah,
like a kind of like stereotypical country accent almost, or I guess more like coastal, like fisherman accent.
Yeah. The thing I can't get out of my head, because I was thinking about like because I read it a certain way, but I was like, if I had to voice cast this person, how would I do it? And the thing I can't get out of my head is Jim Cummings, the voice of Winnie the Pooh, and
oh my god,
and all those people. That is the only thing. That's the only thing to fully complete the circle of cuteness that is going on here. God.
That is perfect.
And also, I don't know what it is. This might be, in these 2 pages and for the rest of this issue, might be like my favorite color palette so far. And it is so
just this like
muted. It feels very New Englandy.
It feels like if you've ever been to Peggy's Cove, it feels like you're at Peggy's Cove. Which is a famous lighthouse on the coast in Nova Scotia, in my homeland of Canada.
So there's a reference for 3 people out there, and for the rest of us,
look up a picture of Peggy's Cove. Like, Google a picture of Peggy's Cove right now.
I'm not gonna do it, but you do it at home. I'll just assume you're right.
You're a piece of shit. You know that.
I googled it. Boy, it's spot on. So anyway, for the people who don't want to do that, no, it's very misty. It's very and it might have like, it might be a little bit of like I don't know, Scotland, like a Highlands influence here or something. But it's very misty. But then we have these nice. I don't want to say gem tones, but it's like that. The things that really pop out are the yellow of the overalls, which go fucking great with the sort of muted blues and stuff. I love yellow as an accent color. That's been something I've been obsessed with lately. But then like in the greens on the satchel and obviously the blue, which I love how much that, again, Prince Robot just feels sort of out of place in this whole scene with his colors.
Especially the purple.
Yeah.
Well, and there's these little bits too where like the red windows of the skull ship match the red on a Friendo's saddle and the red stripes on the lighthouse, and all together it creates these like I think part of the reason why you're able to so like seamlessly transition between all of these worlds is that Fiona Staples finds a way to make, and usually it's through color palettes, to make disparate ideas mix together and feel okay in the same world. Like that dragon skull ship, which has looked completely different and has looked like this kind of menacing thing before, now is kind of just like this accent in the background that has the exact same color palette as the lighthouse.
Yeah, and just there's such an effort here to make, again, this book is so easy to read, and I think this has so much to do with how addicting and how easy it is to just fly through these books, is because they are so thoroughly constructed to just make it so that you can just fly through them as quickly as you want, or take your time and read it and hyperanalyze it as much as we do. And I think that, like, every time that we notice a detail that we haven't noticed before, I think that's a testament to just how easy this book is to read.
Yeah.
And how much you can fly through it, even down to the stuff like the sash, the purple sash on Prince Robot's costume is like this such a cool detail, because if you were even just squinting, like if you took your glasses off and put this book 15 feet away from you, you could still figure out the motion of Prince Robot and which way he's facing, the construction of these shots, because of that diagonal sash across him. And just stuff like that just makes it so easy to read, and that diagonal sash always helps with like the eye line and everything like that. It's so cool.
And the sash is so like, it's so useful when you've got kind of this shot, like we were talking about the other issue. We've got this shot from behind at the top of this page, and then this shot at the bottom of this page from in front, with Prince Robot having walked past Goose. Like, you understand this because of the diagonal of the sash.
Yeah, which we should absolutely bring on my friend Dan Floyd. I have no idea if he's into Saga at all, but he does videos on video game sort of poses, he does videos on video game animation, and he did one specifically about the whole Tracer in Overwatch scandal, where they changed the pose because one was considered too sexualized. But he does this whole video on what makes a good pose and what makes good character design, and he's talking about asymmetry for certain things, and like all these, like the sort of the motion of characters. And I feel like I've noticed myself noticing that so much more after watching that video. But I would love to have him on. This is our goal for the next arc, because we are at the end of this arc. Our next
Holy
arc.
Shit!
Let's
how
get
are
in
we?
some.
How are we already at? This
We're
is flying
2
by.
arcs in, dude. It's fucking crazy.
It's just flying by.
But next arc, we are determined to get some guests on the show to bring in some cool new perspectives, even though somehow we are not running out of shit to talk about. But yeah, I'll add him to the list, see if he's interested. But I definitely want to get into that at some point. Just the sort of principles of character pose, animation, and illustration, and how insanely well done it is throughout this entire book.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
Before we turn, just again, character pose, just Goose squinting and saying, "Are you lady folk?" Like, like everything about that, his acting is incredible.
It's such a joy. I love Goose so much.
Yeah.
Now I can post Goose stuff on the Twitter and everything, and I'm pumped.
Yeah. For those of you that, if you were unaware of this, if you had either read Saga before and didn't know, or this is your first time and you've fallen in love with Goose, I'm going to do a plug here of the Saga shop, where you can buy a Goose plush.
Yes.
And I have one, and it is the best. It is just a little, like...
I'm so jealous.
Like what? Like 10, 12-inch tall plush doll of Goose, and it is adorable and soft, and you can give him hugs, and it's just the best. It is the best $25 I have ever spent in my life.
Well, see, I just need to find some yellow overalls, because my dog is like a tiny little all white dog that is so soft and fluffy.
My fiance and I have legitimately talked about getting a small dog and a big dog so we can name them Goose and Friendo.
It's the best. So yeah, and also I want to post that. I sent you that picture of the overalls they sell at Target that are just spot on Goose outfit. I'll post that on the Twitter. and the Instagram. So check that out. But yeah, I think we should move on because this is a big old last scene.
Yeah. We've had two small scenes or three small scenes, and we're already just about 40 minutes into this recording.
Yeah. So we entered the lighthouse that Prince Robot was stomping towards, and we see a hand clutching. I'm assuming is some kind of alcohol, and working at a desk. And there's a knock on the door. And he gets up. We still haven't seen the face. He gets up, says, "Hold your goddamn horses," answers the door. And we see that it is D. Oswald Heist, the Cyclops, the bearded Cyclops man, who's just, which, when I say Cyclops, it's not a giant. It's just a normal dude with one eye who's wearing just a nice, comfy green sweater and some khakis. And he answers to the door to Prince Robot and, very unsurprised, says, "Oh, you're here about the book." And he assumes that Prince Robot is there for an autograph, and Prince Robot surprises him by saying, "Mr. Heist, have you ever been visited by someone from the moon Wreath?" And he says, "What's this all about?" Suddenly very scared. Prince Robot explains that he may have been accompanied by a woman, a new mother from Landfall. They seem to be obsessed with one of his books, A Midnight Smoke. He says, "Wait, you're here about that piece of shit?" And Prince Robot says, "Don't be coy." Although it's very subtle. It's very brilliantly established, even though he does not agree with the message of what's he say? Radical inaction, radical pacifism, and a call to inaction. And D. Oswald Heist just says, "Kiddo, I hate disabusing anyone of the notion I'm a genius, but I swear to you, that story."
Such a good quote.
That story was about one thing and one thing only: a quick fucking paycheck. And he said that he sort of just wrote the characters' plots around in circles until he had enough pages to slap a marketable cover on it. And he assures him that there is no real message to the book. And Prince Robot seems to believe him. And Prince Robot notices a photo of D. Oswald Heist's son on the wall, who is in armor, is one of the on the wing side. He asks where his son was stationed. He's fighting on, keep in mind, this is the side of the robots. So Prince Robot's starting to trust him a bit more now. And he asks where his son is stationed. D. Oswald Heist says nowhere, he's dead. And there's a bit more conversation. D. Oswald Heist says he's surprised that Prince Robot doesn't have a son because he's royalty. And he gives him some parental advice and sort of pushes him towards the door. And as Prince Robot is leaving, he says, I can't thank you enough, Mr. Heist. My sincere condolences again about your son. Which battle did you say he was killed at?" And then suddenly D. Oswald Heist gets a very serious look on his face and says, "I didn't." And then we get Prince Robot turning around, shutting the door behind him, and he has the swirly, almost like tidal wave hypnotizing beams on his screen, and he says, "Go on." And we're gonna cut the scene in half there to talk about what we've seen so far, but it's taken a bit of a turn.
So, first thought I need to get out there is the lighthouse on Quietus is it's challenging the rocket ship tree for place in Saga I'd most like to live.
Oh my god!
It just feels so cozy. You could read so many books. You can almost hear the wash of the ocean beside, and a little bit of pitter patter of rain. And the muted colors again really drive home the kind of lazy rainy day atmosphere of this place.
Yeah. This is. There's so many places that appeal to us wannabe hermits
Yeah.
in this series of just like abandoned, so total solitude places. Except it's not abandoned. You got fucking Goose to hang out
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
I think that might be
Oh my,
the
yeah,
deal maker.
that sells it. I hadn't even considered that in my evaluation. Yeah. We can just like drink whiskey with Goose.
Oh
Like,
my gosh. Just tossing full fish to Friendo to catch and hanging out all day. I just
oh
want to
my
do
god, tossing full fish at Friendo. Ah, that's utopian. I think the thing, I mean, we honestly could not have planned this better, because the palette makes that pop, and I think the other thing that really drives the scene is the character movements. Like we were talking about, like, this is a scene with a ton of dialogue. It could get like really visually boring. I mean, I don't know that, other than maybe the scene with Gale earlier, I don't know that we've had a scene that's this much dialogue in Saga. Like,
Yeah.
you don't tend to get this much conversation, but it's made compelling by, like, you can see the action in the room. Like, Heist welcomes, then kind of walks away from the robot to his desk. Robot kind of comes up in Heist's grill. Heist moves away, pours a drink. Like, there's kind of this ebb and flow of Prince Robot coming closer and Oswald Heist kind of trying to walk further away. And then once Prince Robot starts to trust him more,
Yeah.
Prince Robot is the one that walks further away and looks at the pictures on the wall. Like, it's such dynamic character movement, which really prevents this from being a boring scene.
Yeah, there are two things, as someone who's, who loves storytelling and filmmaking and everything. There are two things that I'm so thoroughly obsessed with, and that is how people pull off action and how people pull off extended dialogue scenes, because I think those are two of the hardest things to do just ever. And they're two totally different things, but they're both almost always about power struggles and that back and forth. And this is so well done. And I will, after we get through the rest of the scene, I will compare this scene to another scene from a different movie.
Yeah.
But for now, I definitely want to compare it to, if anyone has seen Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Lecter scenes with Jodie Foster's character are so brilliantly and subtly shot, where, like you pointed out, those things of, like, it's almost, but in the movie, it's the camera pulling away and pushing in and being sort of the threatening force here. But just how do you subtly show the power struggle and reflect that power struggle and the relationship itself through camera placement and perspective and character movement and stuff like that. And so, like, you'll notice, like, there's a lot of head-on shots, like, from, like, quote unquote camera right in front of the characters here, that creates a sense of sincerity and really focusing in on certain moments. Like, you'll notice that anytime something especially significant is said, then it'll be a single shot of the character. And then when it's just sort of a back and forth, more conversational, then you'll have both characters in the shot. The expressions of, I love how, just, I know that he's not real or anything, but I love how the Oswald Heist is sort of, we don't even know the full context of the scene, but I love how he's sort of handling this situation of clearly a significant, royal member of the military coming to his house. It feels like, you can sort of tell that something's going on here, but you're not quite sure what, and you don't know whether or not to believe what Heist is saying here. And I think that he, like, at least on your initial read, he convinces the audience just as much as he convinces
absolutely
Prince Robot. That was definitely the case with me when I first read it.
It's like watching a poker game play out. Like there's kind of all of these bluffs and challenges and calls and raises.
That's what I love. One of my favorite things about a lot of scenes like this is when it's almost like a boxing match. Frost Nixon is another great example of where it feels like this sort of this battle. But this one is just like, I like how it's a very subtle version of that, where it's just like you don't know who's manipulating who and who's telling the truth and who isn't. And you don't know for sure if Prince Robot's fully convinced, and you don't know for sure if he's telling the truth and stuff like that. So it's like it's all this is happening under the surface.
And I think it's so impressive that you're able to do all of this when one of your characters literally cannot have facial expressions.
Right. Yeah, one of your characters can't have facial expressions, and one of them is missing an eye. It's just like. Mm-hmm.
What I think is interesting is I think the one eye serves a really interesting role here because it's so big. You can do these more kind of exaggerated expressions, so you can really get when he opens the door. There's kind of this boredom when the prince mentions Wreath. There's this like look of fear and surprise, and I think this is I'm not saying that the one eye makes it easier. I think this is a very difficult thing to pull off well.
Yeah.
But I think the one eye, because it's so expressive, like even when he's giving like dad advice, there's kind of this like joy in it, right? Like
yeah.
It's and I think the other thing to keep in mind, that kind of going back to, again, something we talked about a few issues ago, is there's a whole other level in comics of doing a scene like this because you need to wrangle speech bubbles too.
Yep. Oh man.
It's interesting because they break the 180 rule several times and it's not disorienting.
Yep.
Because it's so well blocked.
Yeah. I kind of want to go back through this and figure out all the 180 breaks, because it's all, again, sort of based in movement.
Yeah.
And you're still getting that natural flow. Again, it's almost something that's hard to analyze, because when I'm reading this, it doesn't even occur to me, because nothing pops out as like everything is just so well done.
Yeah.
And it's made so easy to read that it's just like, yeah, of course all the balloon placements are that, like that whole thing I said of like having whoever's talking first on the left,
yeah,
and stuff like that is consistent throughout. And it is. I would bet that this was one of the hardest scenes to illustrate so far for Fiona.
It's just such a masterclass in everything that makes comics so phenomenal and so interesting as a medium, because yes, you can do all the crazy cool shit and you can have your time suck and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like so much work and thought has to go into wrangling a scene like this.
Yep.
And because you're focusing on that scene on such a minute level, you're able to create such a phenomenal like piece of drama.
Yeah, like it's easy to make a scene exciting when it's like characters you care about jumping into space to save other characters and running away from a black hole and all this shit. But the fact that they can take a character that we haven't seen the whole arc and one we've never met before and stick them in a room for fucking 12 pages or whatever and just have them talk and it be hyper engaging is such a testament to their storytelling skills.
We could do a video essay on this scene. Like I almost even want to like do almost like a top-down tracking of the characters' motions throughout in the room throughout the scene
and everything.
Yeah. And we're not even all the way through the scene.
Yeah, you wanna pick it up again?
Yeah, let's pick it up. So I think an important thing to note too is that we didn't say this on the page turn, but functionally, when you turn the page, what you see is Prince Robot blasting out Oswald Heist's knee.
Yeah.
And I think there's an interesting thing of you turn the page and you're like, wait, how do we get to that? Because that's what you see first.
Yep.
And we've talked about page turns in Saga before. Mm-hmm. So how we get to that is Oswald Heist says that we learned that his son's name was Perone, hung himself in the bathroom after the war. As he's kind of saying this, and Prince Robot is giving his retort, he says, just because your son killed himself, you think all veterans are shell-shocked maniacs. And Oswald Heist reaches for a gun in the drawer and points it at the robot and says, "You're definitely not getting that autograph." And then for a moment, it seems like Prince Robot is kind of playing along and putting his hand up, and then he turns his hand into a gun and blows Oswald Heist's fucking knee off.
Yep.
Oswald goes down, and this moment, this whole thing gets so interesting, where basically Prince Robot 4 says, if you're like, this is such a like gamble, basically says, if you're not a radical pacifist, then kill me now. He gives him a knife and says, "You can stab me in the jugular if you do it with conviction." Or he says, "I have a weakened circuit from an old war wound," which also, we'll talk about that. So if you strike with conviction, you'll likely fell me in a single blow.
Oh, and I should point out, it's not a knife. It's Oswald's pen. Yeah.
And basically says, like, if you're a radical pacifist, you won't kill me. And if you aren't, then kill me right now, and puts a gun to his head. And Oswald Heist doesn't kill him, and basically says, "You combat vets all off yourselves eventually. Do you piss yourself sometimes when you dream about the war?" And then says, "Finish me off already, tough guy. It'll only boost my sales."
I love that so much.
To which Prince Robot pulls up a chair and sits down and says, "Well, I'm just gonna wait here until Alana and Marco come to you." And then we get our... Is this our first Hazel narration of the... Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we get Prince Robot 4 was almost always right, but he was dead wrong about my family coming to Quietus anytime soon. And our ending splash, we'd already been there a week, and we get the crew kind of cowering in the staircase watching what's happening. What a reveal. What a way to end an arc. Holy
they were there the
shit.
whole time, right upstairs. And you know what? Now I'm just now realizing this is fucking great. So this is the first time we're getting Hazel narration, and it's when we're introducing that Hazel and the family were just upstairs, like up the stairs the whole time. And we don't get it for the rest of the book. I just looked back through the Will issue, and there's no Hazel narration in it. And so it's when it's those issues that are not about the family, and not especially issues that she would know the story of, we do not get Hazel narration, which is such an interesting little detail. Also,
there's so many things about the second half of this scene, but we also do you want to do a reading of the best quote from A Nighttime Smoke, which
Prince it's my Contessa character. Reads.
Yeah.
So the setup is that Oswald Heist says that Goose probably heard the gunshot, and he's probably calling the constables now. And Prince Robot says, unless he's preoccupied with his own life, as Contessa says at the end of chapter 12, never worry what other people think of you, because no one ever thinks of you.
Such a good line. I quote that all of the time.
That kind of reminds me of, I just saw this interview the other day with Conan O'Brien talking about just legacy and stuff, and he's talking about how like someone like, you know, everyone thought that like Clark Gable was the biggest fucking human being on the face of the planet in the 30s, and now it's just like, who the fuck talks about Clark Gable anymore? And it is so touchy what like sort of your popularity or your legacy or anything like that like will ever result in, and you have no control over it whatsoever. So just focus on actually like having a decent life.
That's so good.
Yeah, and it reminded me of that a lot. But that is such a good fucking quote, and I really want to read this book. Why won't they let me read A Nighttime Smoke? That's great.
So the scene that now that we've gone through, I'll give you the honors of the scene that I think is probably on a lot of people's minds when you
Yes.
learn that there's a family hiding here.
Yeah. So the opening scene of Inglourious Basterds, which I think predates this, but it is done almost in a reverse way, is so similar. Like, it reminds me so much of this whole scene of that whole it really is a game of poker, and it's the game of like bluffing and the hunter character trying to track down the family, and the hunter being so much better at it than the person that he's talking to, especially with, oh my god, that fucking bluff, that if it was a bluff that Prince Robot does with the stab me in the neck.
Yeah.
He's just like, go ahead and shoot me or stab me in the neck with your pen, because he is so thoroughly confident of this man being such a...
Yeah. Well, the fact that the point that he's saying in the neck, that's the wound that we started the issue with.
Yep. A weakened circuit. That is such interesting anatomy.
Yeah, like all of the best fucking exposition in Saga, it just begs 1,000 more questions about the world.
Yeah, except you immediately know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And just like the kind of the turns of these characters where you suddenly get like when the facade falls down, and you get that Prince Robot is like kind of this like it's really interesting when he's talking about like stabbing in the throat. There's definitely this kind of undertone of, especially given where it started, and we talked about Heist's son killing himself and like the trauma of war. There's kind of this undertone that like Prince Robot is at a place where he's willing to die, like,
yep.
And then we get the turn of Heist from this like kind of quirky old author man into, no, this guy is a radical pacifist who can take a fucking bullet to the knee and have a gun pointed at his head and just stick by his conviction.
Yeah, and I love how much that informs it informs the character that we were totally misled about the character up until this point.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that itself says so much about this character and what how capable he is. And like how thoroughly convincing he was. But what he was apparently lying the entire time and had the fucking family right upstairs and played it so fucking cool until he fucked up right as Prince Robot was walking out the door. But
what a fucking scene, what an issue, and what an arc. Like, I mean,
and that's how they end the fucking arc.
Yeah,
it's crazy. You have to sit on that for 3 months.
Oh my god,
it's so good. This is I would say to talk about the arc as a whole, that I liked this arc better than the first book, and I love the first book.
I agree completely. I mean, I think the first book is a unique experience because it's introducing you to a world that's like no other. But now that you're in the world, you can do some really cool stuff with it, and that's what we see in this arc. Is it's not so much about, and I mean, there are still these crazy cool aspects of the world, but now that you're in the world, now that you're with these characters, you can do so much plot driven stuff that's super compelling and just so kind of keeps you at the edge of your chair wanting to turn the page over and over again, right?
Yeah. This actually reminds me, because the first book has a total like Star Wars blockbuster structure of like the second something starts to slow down a bit, cut to the other,
meanwhile
the
back at the farm.
Yeah, exactly. And this one, it actually reminds me, I think it's interesting because Damon Lindelof, the co-creator of Lost and the upcoming Watchmen series, like I mentioned, I think in the first episode or something, that he's friends with Brian K. Vaughan, and he had him write on Lost and all this stuff. But it is amazing to me, especially looking at this, how much their style and structure is similar. Because in this one we get, I don't know if you've ever watched The Leftovers by Damon Lindelof.
No, I haven't.
It's so fucking good. You would love it. But it is so similarly structured to where it's just like it is whatever the story, whatever is coolest and most exciting for the story, and almost like the structure is one of the refreshing things that keeps you invested. And so I love that this arc, it's just like, yeah, well, we're gonna do a bunch of flashbacks. Like again, we started with a flashback in this issue, and every issue starts with a flashback. This arc, and then we're gonna get like the weird, like, this is the Wills episode, and this is Prince Robot's episode, and I love how both of those issues end with them running, like ending up at the spot that the family's at.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's such a cool, but it's such an interesting structure, and it really requires you to be so connected as you are to all the different characters to sort of hold up that structure.
It's such a it's such a ballsy move to have this be the last issue of the arc. Like, it's at the end you realize this is a serious jump forward. Like, it's a time jump forward from before.
Yep.
It's following a character we haven't seen. It's following a new character. Like, it's such a, but it works so well, and it's so compelling because of that. And I think you're completely right where, like, you read through the first arc, and almost every issue, which I also think is to its benefit, like, it gets you into this rigid structure of like we're getting shorter flashes of each of these characters, and we're following the family. We're doing the meanwhile back at the farm. Mm-hmm. And then as we go into this arc, that kind of rigid structure disintegrates, and we're allowed to just breathe in this story.
Yep. And then also, I love how it's very interesting to me that even though they change up the structure so much, that structure, that story structure, is very much consistent with the last book. Where you remember me saying at the end of the last arc, where it kind of feels like the last issue is more of like the post credits teaser for the next arc.
Yeah,
like that is 100% like they could have totally ended. They could have straight up ended the arc at the last issue. And
they could have straight up ended the story at the last issue.
yeah. Like, that is such a good cap. And it's like that is such an interesting technique that it's like it's almost like they're just taking the first issue of the next arc and putting it at the end of the previous arc. And that just keeps you going. But yeah, this whole issue is such a good teaser for what's coming up. And yeah, I'm taking notes. Because I feel like this is, honestly, if this podcast is useful for anything, and analyzing Saga is useful for anything, it is just a fucking blueprint on how to make like the most widely appealing and successful fucking comic ever. Because it is so brilliantly done.
More than just comic, like story. The way it leans into the medium is a part of it, but it's just such a compelling story. And I think a big part of that too is a good story understands its medium properly. Yeah. And this is an incredible story, and this is the only medium through which you can properly tell this story.
Yeah. And I like I feel like I finally really like internalize what that like how that actually applies to this, because I always hear like, oh, well, it's so specifically comics. And I think like, yeah, the budget would be hard, but you could, with what HBO's doing with Game of Thrones and shit, they could probably do all these different planets. But looking at it this close and seeing like, oh, this works so well because of all these tiny little invisible details of the layout of the balloons and the structure of each issue and the way they play with sound effects and with every tiny aspects. Like, they take every aspect of creating comics and they just invisibly make it perfect. And so it is just like, you could, I'm sure there are a million different TV and film producers that have read this and be like, oh, this is exciting and this is big, let's make it a movie. But like, you really, like, if you know comics or anything like that, like, it is crazy how well they've put this together and how big of a part that plays in its success.
It's super interesting because ever since we started doing this, anytime I'm reading comics, in my mind, I'm kind of thinking like, well, once we're at the end of this, what's another comic we can do this to? And none of them, I feel like none of them that I've read since we started this, you can dissect on the same level. Like, a lot of them are brilliant, a lot of them are cool, but I feel like this kind of like razor level of dissection that we're doing for each issue would get really boring with anything else. And who knows, maybe this is boring the hell out of you guys, but I am so fucking in for this, like even more so than I was at the start of this arc now. Like, I'm so just jazzed about this.
Yeah, and the fact that we've gone fucking overtime on the fucking, end of the second volume of this thing is just such a testament to how much there is. But by the way, I was rereading a comic last night, and I will send you a link to it after we're done. I won't say what it is, but I think, if there's anything that is a potential successor to this in terms of dissectability.
I have one or two thoughts. We can talk about that another day, though. Yeah.
Because I always feel bad that we keep saying, like, oh, we could do this or this, and then everyone's going to be disappointed of, like, oh, you said this forever ago and you never did it.
Yeah.
Because we're mentioning all these great comics. And we also will die eventually. And there is already with the ones we've mentioned. We're not going to... We're setting ourselves up for a fucking... what's the Boyhood guy who just announced he's doing a 20-year movie?
Linklater?
Yeah, Richard Linklater. We're getting into a real Richard Linklater production schedule here.
Did you see his studio's tweet about it?
No.
It was amazing. It said... The most optimistic part about this is assuming that that the world will be around in 20 years.
That was my first thought. That was literally, I was just like, I saw someone tweeted like me watching Richard Linklater's new movie in 20 years, and it's just a shot of someone in scuba gear sitting on a couch watching something. But yeah, no, it's we're very optimistic about the like it's gonna, I'd say let's focus on getting the fucking 108 episodes of this shit we have to get done instead of constantly talking about what we'll do next. But yeah, hey, so, we got another arc done, which means the next episode is going to be between the arcs, which is always fun.
Woot woot!
Even longer than this episode. That's great.
What I was gonna say though is, what was your favorite moment, Jonathan?
Dude, honestly, I gotta say, just the whole like conversation. It is so fucking good.
I'm not gonna give you that. You got to give me a moment. That's not a moment. That's a scene.
The turn where he finally breaks as he's going out the door, and he was so close to getting away with it, but that fucking Prince Robot found the one trigger for him with his son that he just could not keep playing it cool. I feel like it is such a fucking great chess match between these two that is constantly going on under the surface. And so brilliantly done.
I want to say my favorite moment is Goose and Friendo, but
that's a good one.
I think my favorite moment is the weekend circuit, like the bluff / maybe not bluff of just fucking kill me right now if you're not a radical pacifist.
Which again, the PTSD and him literally right before that, him saying how suicidal the PTSD people are, and then him just proving him right there is so fucking good. But yeah, it's fucking great. It's such a good book. But yeah, the Goose and Friendo reveal, I audibly squealed the first time I saw that. I was just so just elated by that character design. And it's not the last we see of them. So there is good in this world. That's my teaser for the upcoming. Keep listening. There's more Goose and Friendo. So yeah, what about wait, really, really quick. I want to hear some cool music.
Yeah.
Boy, that was good music. What is the what do you have a question for the people?
I'm having trouble thinking of a question. I'm still just kind of like winded from reading this issue. It's so tense.
Well, you know what? Let's go with an easy one. We've been stacking them on lately. Let's ask everyone what we asked ourselves. Who or what does Goose sound like?
Yeah.
Even though I've come up with the greatest answer, which is Winnie the Pooh. And what about, do you have a song?
I mean, the whole scene is so like tense. I need something that like a song that really captures that kind of tension. I gotta think on this. Do you have a song?
Yes. Well, I was just trying to think of like, if this was a film, like what's the song that's playing in, what would be the song that Oswald D. Heiss puts on when he sees the ship arriving? Because I love thinking of like that scramble right before of them running upstairs and them clearing anything out they had on the first floor and him trying to act casual. And I'm gonna go with Chopin's Waltz in C sharp minor. As just
Good
like
old
a
C sharp minor.
good old C sharp minor, which is just like a very chill sort of background, but very kind of foreboding. Like the little bursts of energy throughout it, I feel like would make a good undercurrent, and then it would just stop with the gunshot blast. But go ahead and listen to that first part of the scene with that in mind.
I've come up with my answer, which lyrically it's not exactly a match, but the tension and musical drama of "My Body Is a Cage" by Arcade Fire.
Ooh, I like that with the fucking hit in the middle.
Yeah.
The fucking organs blasting. That is structurally. It just a fun fact, because this is already so fucking long. Fun fact, if you want to know about my musical tastes, I think that is probably a perfectly constructed song in terms of my taste in music, where you have that constant build and just that amazing payoff, and it just keeps getting better and better. That and like exit music for a film by Radiohead and anything Florence and the Machine has done and stuff like that. I love the structure of that song. But yeah, good fucking choice. And you know what? Let's. Hey Noah, I'm gonna try one of your weird transitions. Hey Noah, if people love you, if anyone in the world loves you, where could they look at you online? But just your words.
Well, you could. Real smooth transition.
Yeah, I took a page out of your playbook.
You could find me at YouTube, where you could search Polyphonic, or you could find me on Twitter at Watch Polyphonic, or my bump in Instagram is also Watch Polyphonic.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna go ahead and just boost at Wash Polyphonic on Twitter.
How's the Wash Polyphonic life going?
You know what? I may or may not have not logged back into that. So let's look up really quick.
One following, one follower.
I'm guessing it's you and you.
No, you're following yourself.
Oh, that's gonna be such a nice joke for future me so many times. Come on, people, follow at Wash Polyphonic, WASH Polyphonic. So that's my only bump.
Has the issue or the episode where you created that even gone out to the public yet?
Ooh, that actually might be. No, I think that's the last one that went live. So come on, people. That's fucking great though. So I'm gonna say, it also, because we're this next, man, awesome stuff ahead for this podcast. We got the behind or between the arcs episode coming up next, which was a big hit last time, surprisingly. Let's make it less of a nightmare to fucking edit and put together this time. But we're going to be answering all your questions, your answers to the question of the week. And if you have any questions for us, we'll read some comments. We're going to do some fun between the arcs trivia and stuff like that. And don't forget this, if you want to answer this question of the week, go to the Twitter, the pin tweet, go to the video version of this podcast, the pinned comment, reply there. We'll read it probably. And as always, a big old thank you to Fiona Staples, Brian K. Vaughan, Phonographics, and Image Comics for making seriously, I don't know if we've mentioned this, the best comic ever. It's so fucking good. And how are we wrapping up this week, Noah?
I wanted to say one more thing too. If you like listening to us talk and you want to listen to us talk about something else, I made an appearance on your podcast, or am about to.
No, that was great. We talked about so many great things, and I did not know that about your upbringing. So go listen to that, which will be up ASAP. So yeah, definitely that is exclusive to the Patreon, where you can also get access to these a week early.
And have I got a sign off for us this week?
Yes.
Until next week, never worry what other people think of you, because no one ever thinks of you.
Bye.
Bye.